Hello everyone, welcome and thank you for tuning in. Our topic for today is what makes a great entrepreneurial opportunity. In this session, you'll learn how to recognize and evaluate an entrepreneurial idea and also how to find out whether an idea has real potential. If you are an aspiring entrepreneur, follow us through these steps and prepare for your own entrepreneurial opportunity. I'm excited to welcome our guest for today, Jack Fuchs. So Jack is an investor, global entrepreneur, and lecturer. His current roles include VC partner, board representative, CFO, and advisor positions with IT, medtech, and cleantech businesses. He's an adjunct professor in entrepreneurship at Stanford University and is empowering future entrepreneurs in Unternehmertum's Academy for Innovators. As a mentor, Jack helps entrepreneurs to establish the best version of Silicon Valley wherever they are and conducts workshops in entrepreneurship around the world. He holds a bachelor's degree in engineering sciences from Dartmouth College and an MBA from Stanford University. Welcome, Jack.
Thank you, Miki.
So let's jump right away into the first question. Jack, how do you evaluate entrepreneurial opportunities? So why is it important to also have a framework for such an evaluation?
Well, Miki, I have been evaluating entrepreneurial opportunities for almost 2 decades, both as an entrepreneur and as an entrepreneurial teacher. I have seen and experienced many entrepreneurs come to me, whether it's as students of mine or at a cocktail party, and they will come up with an idea and they'll say, let's do this crazy thing. And I find it very useful to have in your own mind a common set of questions that you ask any opportunity. And that way you can screen the opportunities, because early on, it's very hard to tell whether an opportunity is going to be a fantastic exponential success, or maybe only a somewhat success, or not a very good company at all. So I find that by having a framework, you can evaluate it early on. And if you do that over and over and over again, whatever the framework is, you'll get better and better at it. And over time, you'll be able to recognize a great opportunity.
Okay. So what are these important aspects, or what kind of framework is it that you're talking about?
Well, I tend to ask 5 simple questions about an opportunity. Now, these are my questions, and I think that any of you should develop your own framework. If you like this one, that's fantastic. But just come up with a set of questions and then just ask those over and over again, and you'll get good at this. My questions that I ask about any idea to try to determine whether it's a good idea or to improve an idea are, is there a burning need? Are at least some people is their hair on fire, and are they extremely interested in this idea? They thank you for coming to them with this idea. The second is it a big enough market? If you're going to be accepting investment from external people, and if you're going to be devoting the next 5 to 10 years of your life to this opportunity, you'd like to know that if you're successful, enough people will want to buy this. The third is, can you establish a sustainable, differentiated positioning? Can you differentiate yourself from other things that are available in the market, and can you sustain that over a long period of time? The fourth is, can I establish a scalable business model? That is, can I make money? And as I grow the company, do the economics scale? The last one is, and it's kind of a combined one, is it the right time and the right team? Are these the right people, or am I the right person to be bringing this opportunity to the marketplace? And what has happened in the world that has made this a particularly good time for this opportunity?
Interesting. Okay. And regarding the first point, do you mean whether there's a burning need for this idea, or is the team or the founder burning to bring this to market? Or what did you mean with the first point?
Yeah, I actually mean, is there a burning need on the part of the customer? That there is at least some group of people out there who really need your product.
Okay.
And a lot of entrepreneurs can think that a product is necessary, and then they go and build it, and then after 2 years of developing it, they bring it to the market, and they find out that it's a nice to have, not a need to have. And entrepreneurship is hard enough. It's a lot easier if you're selling something that's a need to have.
But don't you think there are very many ideas out, or businesses out there, that sell products or services that are actually nice to have? I mean, I would even say Netflix is nice to have. It's not really a need, but it's kind of nice to be able to stream different kinds of TV shows and films. Yeah.
Yes, Miki, I think you make a wonderful point. And I, although sometimes I might say things that seem absolute, I'm very much willing to have a nice dialogue about these ideas. I think that this need to have is much more important if you're selling into businesses and enterprise. I think that that it's still important with consumer, and I'll get there in a second, but I think it's very important as an entrepreneur to think about whether you want to do something that is consumer oriented or enterprise oriented. They are fundamentally different animals. They're different types of businesses. Everything about them is different. Selling financial service products to banks is very different from selling Netflix to customers. Everything, the marketing is different, the selling is different, the product is different, the way that you approach the world is different. And so that's important. With enterprise, I think it's important to try to test that burning need early on. And in that case, you really want to make sure it's a need to have. With consumers and with enterprises too, MIT used to talk about trying to develop things that customers will come to want to need. And so it is a little bit, it's a little tricky when you think about, is this a need to have for a customer? You can't just basically ask a customer, do you need this? Do you need to stream movies and television shows 20 hours a day? Or before that, by the way, with Netflix, do you need to receive a DVD in the mail every 5 days of another movie that you can use? Because that was the original Netflix model. What you want to do is ask the proper questions to a customer that help you get a true feeling for whether there's an underlying need for what that customer is looking for. And that's still true of consumer as well. There was and still is an underlying need for people to have on-demand, as on-demand as possible, entertainment. That was already a need when Netflix was started.
So in your many years of experience, did you see ideas that actually didn't fulfill these 5 criteria and were successful but despite of it?
So I don't view the 5 criteria as being that you need to get an A+ or what 16, whatever the number is, that you need to get the top grade on all of those areas in order to succeed. I view it as a way of evaluating an idea and of improving an idea. And so if I look at an idea, that I look at those 5 questions, I'd like to see that there are some areas where the idea is distinctive and other areas where it's at least okay. If I find an area that's just very wrong, it's just not working out, I will ask myself, can this idea survive without that? And usually the answer is no. Usually you have to somehow make that better. And so just like you in life have some skills that you're wonderful at and some things that you're okay at, you need to evaluate for yourself. Do I want to make the okay things a little better? Do I want to make the great things even greater? And we go about our lives and do all of that. And so too do you do with an entrepreneurial opportunity. If one of the most important things you have is how distinctive and sustainably differentiated your product is, you want to keep making that even better and better and better. You know, Google as a search engine, right, continues to make itself better and better just by being a search engine. If you have other things that are real flat spots that aren't very good, you may need to shore those up. And I sometimes call that a single point of failure. Actually, a lot of people in the industry would call that. You look sometimes for a single point of failure in a business model. Boy, do you want to make sure that you're as clear about that as possible. If one thing has to happen in order for you to be successful, you better make sure that that can happen.
Okay. So you talked about that the burning need or customer desire has to be there, even more important in B2B than B2C. So how do I figure out whether customers will actually buy my product before I maybe even have a prototype or actual product to sell or to show?
Yes, I think that especially with B2B, but I really do believe with consumer as well. It's extremely important to ask customers what they want, and then to listen with your intuition and your analytical side, to be both intuitive and analytical about trying to assess what everyone is now calling product market fit and iterating on product market fit. And so what you can do is you can describe a product as best you can. You can ask a customer what resonates with them. If what you said doesn't resonate with them, ask them what does. They can help you design your product. And the early customers will do that. And then you need to, in the case of consumer, you need to do some very quantifiable surveys to try to assess things, but then you need to also add that intuitive side of talking with customers and trying to figure out what they want. You then iterate on that. You then develop a mock-up or a prototype. You bring that to them. You get their reaction to it, and you continue to do that. And what you try to get to, and what I try to look for, the most important thing of that entire 5 questions is that product market fit, is whether you have fundamentally developed some kind of product that has something different about it that's really cool, and that you've uncovered some particular need in some target customer group. And when that thing that you've differentiated about your product fits that market need hand in glove, that's when you've unlocked potential, and that's when you can hit that flywheel that they talk about, and continue to innovate and continue to improve and continue to differentiate yourself from other products in the market. And that's what generally leads to success eventually. And sometimes it does take a long time. And that's, again, why you want to have this framework, and you want to really be able to believe in this, because sometimes it takes a real long time before things take off. And sometimes it just takes a real long time and it doesn't take off, right? And so it's really kind of neat to try to have a framework about thinking about what might work early on.
Are there a few examples where the product really surprised you? Like where a potential founder came to you and described a new idea and you were like, wow, this is something really special. I'm going to help you build it.
So there are, I'm always surprised by founders. I'm surprised by their enthusiasm for their product. I'm surprised by their vision. I'm surprised by how some extremely young founders can develop a following of other entrepreneurs and people who want to work with them, can develop a following of partners in the industry, people who are people who have as much experience, more experience than I have been working in the automotive industry for 30 years. And here comes a young founder with an idea trying to sell some product to this big company with experienced executives. And they start following the founder as well. And customers and partners and investors. It's an infectious enthusiasm that happens when a founder has that fundamental belief in what he or she is doing. And I think that I'm never then surprised if that's happening. I'm never then surprised if a very good idea combined with a founder with that kind of ability to develop a following. I'm just about never surprised that that eventually leads to some kind of success. And maybe not even in their first company, right? Maybe in that first company, they try something and it was just too heavy a lift, or the market just took too long to develop, right? Because if you're trying to do what the customers are going to come to want to need, sometimes it takes the customers a little too long to figure that out. But often in their next company, it's successful. And when I try to work with entrepreneurs, I'm very interested in not just working with them in whatever they're doing now, but I'd like to continue to work with them in the future.
Mm-hmm. So if I have a prototype now and or a functioning prototype of a product, how do I decide how to market and sell that product or service?
Well, I described earlier how different consumer and enterprise opportunities are. And then even within enterprise, you have some types of enterprise companies that are selling to the biggest companies, and then some that are selling to smaller and smaller companies, which can maybe act like consumers too. Again, I think it's really important for an entrepreneur to think about how different those things are. And then it's also then important to figure out whether you have a way of bringing your product to market that is scalable and that the business model works. And so I encourage entrepreneurs to look at what we call unit economics, the unit economics of their business. And in this case, maybe the unit economics of a sale. So if you're going to sell a product to enterprise, to businesses, you want to look at what is it going to cost you to build the product? What is it going to cost you to sell that product to those enterprise? And then how much money can you make from that sale to the enterprise? If you're trying to sell something that requires a lot of explaining, what we say a high touch sale, that you're going to need to go and talk to the customer many times, it's going to be very expensive to sell it. And so you should make sure that you're providing enough value that you're able to sell it for a lot of money. If you're trying to sell a consumer product, it's very important that it's a very low touch. It has to be something generally that doesn't require a lot of explanation. Netflix doesn't require a lot of explanation. An iPhone doesn't require a lot of explanation. In that case, it's much more of a marketing driven sell. And then you're evaluating the unit economics of how you move a consumer from clicking on something, down to eventually buying it, and all the marketing expenses associated with that. Where on the enterprise side, you were doing the same thing on more of a selling, an external outward selling. And so this is an overall way of evaluating whether the way you're thinking about bringing your product to market makes sense, right? Am I marketing and selling the product effectively based on the amount of touch it requires to explain it? And am I going to make enough money, or do the unit economics work for me? I think of, this is probably the next question you would ask, but I've seen a lot of opportunities of people who want to, let's say, sell loyalty cards to restaurants or sell something to a restaurant. And that's a business model that's extremely hard. I use this as an example because you're not really going to be able to make that much money from selling this kind of a thing to a restaurant. When you think about how much would a restaurant pay you per month or per year, compared to how much it would cost you to go out there and sell it to them, to explain it to them, to train their employees on how it's used, you go through this process. Unless you can figure out, and somebody will do this, they'll figure out a way to do this completely like a consumer situation where it's completely done with low touch and marketing, then the unit economics can work. If you're trying to go out there with people going out and calling on restaurants, then that doesn't work. And so it's this combination of evaluating the amount of how high a touch is the sale, and then what the unit economics are of the sale.
Okay. So if I'm now an aspiring entrepreneur and I have a good idea, great idea, how do I know whether this is also a great opportunity for me personally?
Yeah, I think that's, you know, I keep coming back to, you know, consumer versus enterprise. I've shared with you the 5 questions that I ask generally about any opportunity. As an investor, I also ask another series of questions about an opportunity as to whether it's a good investment for me. Mm-hmm. As an entrepreneur, you should be doing the same thing. You should add, if you like the 5 questions that I described, and I'd be glad for anybody to connect with me and we can talk more about what those questions mean. But if I were you, I would add my own series of personal questions. For some entrepreneurs, unless they're doing something that is going to completely change the world, they don't want to bother. And that's fantastic. And for other entrepreneurs, that's crazy, right? They wouldn't want to do something where they have no idea whether they're going to be successful and then maybe it's going to work out in the long run. And so you should be asking yourself, do I want to change the world, or do I want to just change my little corner of the world? You can ask yourself, do I want to sell something that's to consumers? Because unless I'm selling something to consumers, I don't really care. Or that consumer stuff is crazy and I don't understand it. I prefer something where if I know that if I can make something that works for a certain kind of automotive company, that they're going to love it, and I want to work in automotive because that's me. So ask yourself what you like, what you enjoy, because unless you're doing something that you enjoy, it's really hard to be an entrepreneur. You really have to enjoy the journey, and that's why you do want to make it personal. It's also why I like when entrepreneurs are inspired by an idea from their experiences, from their work. Sometimes I see entrepreneurs who will get together with a co-founder and they will reverse engineer what they believe to be the perfect idea. And then they come back with this idea that they're going to sell insurance to landlords. And you ask them, do any of you know anything about insurance? No. Have any of you ever worked in insurance? No. Do any of you you know what it's like to sell to real estate people? Well, not sure. Maybe you've come up with a great idea theoretically for somebody, but it might not be a great idea for you. So I really encourage people to try to get a sense, because my view of, people use the word passion all the time, and I don't like to use it too much, but some people think of passion as being something that is innate in someone, and they have a passion for some particular thing. And that's true for some people. But for most people, they develop passion by working really hard at something over and over, and they become distinctive at it. And through that work, they develop that passion. And so it's kind of important early on to get a sense of what you enjoy doing, so that it's something that you will put that work into and hopefully grow and develop and have an incredibly fulfilled career.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's great advice. And I bet also a lot of food for thought for all the people watching out there thinking about starting their own business. So I think we're at the end of the talk already. Thank you very much, Jack, for your time and for your insights into what makes a great entrepreneurial opportunity. And if you want to get in touch with Jack, you can also find his LinkedIn profile, or the link to his LinkedIn profile on the UTalk website. And also, if you're an aspiring entrepreneur, if you have a great idea, please also have a look at our programs that Unternehmertum offers for the idea stage, for the incubation stage, also for the acceleration phase. So if you need any support, please also have a look at our programs. So with that, also, if you like the talk, please subscribe to our newsletter. You will find all the future talks or future upcoming talks in the newsletter as well. And we hope to see you at the next talk again. And with that, thank you very much. Have a nice afternoon. And also thank you very much, Jack.
Thank you, Miki.